And as we can see, Titanic is about to miss the iceberg, something I never thought I would say before, but here we go. Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are back on Roblox Titanic, joined by Inyo22 and TheAmazeman, and today we're going to be rescuing the Titanic from that deadly iceberg. So yeah guys, let's get into the video. Alright, so while we're here with Amaze, we're gonna ask some questions for him about the Save the Titanic feature, Save the Ship feature. And yeah, first and foremost, what are the steps that are required to actually save the ship? Because a lot of people have been asking that question in the comments.
Hey guys, it's TheAmazeman. The steps required to save the ship were thought about based on some simple to understand ideas that the Titanic movie in 1997 gave us, as well as the interactivity that we have in the game currently. And those steps are a nice 5-step process to save the Titanic. That 5-step process is ringing the bell 3 times. Inyo is right now answering the phone, and we all know that scene in the Titanic movie. And then the ship, you go hard starboard, and then one of these telegraphs is chosen. This is a little bit of a randomness. All you have to do is make it go astern once. In the future, yes, it would be ideal to have it so you have to go full astern. Essentially, we assume that the engine room has the call answered, and then the boiler room, you shut the dampers, and that is the 5th thing you have to do. You have to shut all the dampers of one of the boilers, and it's randomly chosen. And now, people may say like, oh, well, what if people just already closed the dampers before the iceberg sinking? Well, that's not going to work because the game is smart, and it will open all the dampers right as that time comes for the dampers to be closed. So you have to do it within a certain order for this to work.
Alright, so that is the entire method on how to save the ship in Roblox Titanic. The sun has just set, and an iceberg is dead ahead. We just can't see it yet, because it's just a little too far out. But, yeah, so, let's see how these guys save the ship. I'm just gonna be watching, and, maybe give a hand when needed. But, yeah, let's go ahead and, let's save the Titanic.
Alright, so, I've noticed a lot of people in Discord have been DMing each other and getting into group calls to save the ship because it requires somewhat of a hefty crew that needs to understand what's going to happen and how they can do this quickly within the 27 seconds that is currently set to default. And so me and Inyo are going to be doing that. So I'm at the lookout tower. Inyo's going to do everything in the bridge, and while Inyo's doing the things in the bridge, I'm going to teleport to the boiler room, and we will see if we get it done in 27 seconds.
Let's see, it's going to be quite exciting, and if we don't, we'll just retry it. Alright, I see the iceberg, and now it's just down to the timer appearing, and then the whole sequence will unfold. So, here we go. We're waiting for Amazeman to ring the bell. There we go. And I will go ahead and get the telegraph. There we go. And now, all we need to do is get the boilers set, and once they're set, the ship is going to be saved, and it's going to be quite an interesting scene here. So, there we go. With 9 seconds to spare, we've just won the badge, saved the ship, and as we can see, Titanic is about to miss the iceberg, something I never thought I would say before, but, here we go. This is it. So, there's Amazeman running to the bow, and here we have Inyo standing on the bridge wing.
It's looking better and better by the second, and we're really turning now.
Yep, there we go. And we have cleared the iceberg, and we're going to see it pass by here. Now, there was an interesting feature that Amaze also included into the Save the Ship function, which allows you to keep replaying the Save the Ship function, and it actually makes it quicker and quicker each round, which makes it more and more difficult. So, if you survive this round, there's another round that you can play through, and it'll just be faster and faster. So if you just want to see the ship sink, and the crew is so good on board the ship that they keep saving it, eventually it's going to be too quick, and the ship will have to hit the iceberg. But we're about to see in a moment a pop-up text window appear, and then we're going to head to New York. So yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. And there goes the iceberg into the distance. And yeah, Titanic has survived, so we will now get the option to teleport and sail to New York. So let's go. Alright, so we are on board the Titanic. It is the morning of April 15th, And I would let Amaze tell us a little bit about why he decided to actually make this version come back to Roblox Titanic. Why this game mode, Amaze?
Well, this game mode was something I've always wanted to have in the original game, and it was in the game, I think, in 2012, but it was not done as well as we could have done it, and it was removed eventually, and it was never put into the 1.0 version due to having to do other things, having to attend other parts of the game and making those parts of the game more higher quality. And now that we're at a place where we're pretty comfortable with the gameplay, we have been able to produce more game modes to Titanic. Last summer we got wreck sites, and this summer we got the save the ship. Who knows what we're going to do next summer?
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting. The future of the game seems, very vast, and as we can see here, we've just sailed into the night of April 15th, and there are no icebergs ahead. We've made it past the ice fields, and yeah, we're going to be seeing New York very soon. And speaking about New York, how was that all put together? How was the research conducted, and what type of effort went into actually making the island, and who made it?
The research that went into the islands was actually kind of funny. We used a vintage postcard from 1910 that showed the New York City skyline as it was at that time. And thankfully, above each building in this postcard was the names of all the buildings in the backdrop. So from there, we were able to find photographs of each of these individual buildings up close. And another thing which was helpful was a vintage 1900s fire insurance map, which showed the positioning of these buildings and the roads where they all were.
That is super cool, and, a great use of historical artifacts like postcards and maps from the time to create a somewhat accurate, of course you can't get 100% accurate, but, it's a very accurate version of New York as it was during the time, of course missing a lot of the details because the whole island is moving. The ship is actually stationary, and the island moves around it to give it the effect of the ship actually moving. And I'm gonna have to ask Amaze for this, but how was the actual movement of the ship planned out? How did you figure out how the ship was actually gonna move?
Yeah, so when we were creating this New York sequence, I knew that I wanted to have it be as realistic as possible with regards to players being able to start to see the Statue of Liberty and see Manhattan Island on over to the north of where the ship is. And I wanted it to be a full sequence, though it's not real-time sequence, obviously. It takes about 3 minutes to dock in the game once you get into New York City. And there's a couple of trippy things that happen. So Titanic is sailing west while getting to New York. However, it docks facing east as it goes up the channel. And so to Pier 59. So that obviously means with a Roblox game engine with their lighting system, they have the time of day, and depending on the time of day is where the sun is positioned, along with the geographic latitude, a setting you can change in lighting. And funny thing is, this is a minute detail, but so the sun is setting to the bow while it's sailing currently, like we're at Wednesday, April 17th, almost noon. And that's another thing. At noon, it's actually going to stop. The sun is going to stop right now. That's because it's noon. It's the easiest time for me to do this, what I'm about to say is like a switcheroo. As the Titanic is docking at noon, which, there's, it's not quite like understood when the Titanic would actually be able to dock, so we took some artistic liberty. And with that, the sun is actually going to set the other way that it was just going, and that's due to the facing west versus facing east. So I essentially had reversed time during the sailing sequence instead of put time forward. And there's some equation I used to like reverse the time and all that. And now, so as you can see, the island, we are getting closer and closer to the island, and like Jesse said, it's actually the island that's moving. And I wanted to create this emotional scene where you see the music comes in, the sun is coming out, there's no longer a storm, Titanic is coming up the channel into the dock, and this is a composition by Phallic. He's the composer. He's composed all of the Titanic music.
Wow, this is just incredible. I mean, looking at the Titanic actually making it to New York, even though there is a lack of the smaller buildings, you get a kind of a close idea of what Titanic would have looked like during that time as it headed into the harbor. And I mean, again, it just looks fantastic. You can see the fog slowly pulling away, of course, the storm, as you mentioned. And here we go. We are docking in New York, and something that Titanic would never do. It struck an iceberg, of course, and went down on April 14th and 15th of 1912. So, again, here we are, April 17th, 1912, at New York.
One neat little historical thing I want to add, and artistic liberty. Due to the limitations of Roblox, we had to squish a lot of the buildings a lot closer together than they would have been in reality.
Yeah, and that's actually visible here. You can see a lot of the buildings are pushed together, and you can see where the docks would be is where the modern-day World Trade Center would be, actually.
I was going to bring that up. Technically, where we would be seeing would be the Hudson Terminal building at the time here, but just for sake artistic liberty and show the skyline, we moved Chelsea Piers down to where Hudson Terminal, aka the World Trade Center, would have been.
Yep, and here we go. We're going straight into the dock here, and once we dock, we can actually go down to D-Deck and leave the ship. It's been a wonderful journey aboard the RMS Titanic, and without it sinking, we wouldn't be talking about it, and we wouldn't have a game about it today. So it's quite interesting how history decides to play out. But here we are docking at Pier 59. Alright, so let's go ahead and walk down to D-Deck here, and let's get off the ship. Now, this is the low detail version of Roblox Titanic, and I think Amaze can explain why it's that way.
In the Save the Ship docking sequence, we have only one ship, and it's the low detail one. And it's essentially just because it was easier to place in, and it would be easier to load in quickly for players. And with all of the detail in New York City that we have and that we plan to add in the future, it would just be easier to have one level of detail, as well as soon as our 3.0 model comes out in the future, we will also only have one level of detail in the entire game, so we will no longer have a high detail. Therefore, we're getting ready for that one level of detail by not allowing the option for that in this server.
Yeah, we'll have to wait a year before that's complete or gets close to completion. But we are just going to stroll around New York for a little bit here and kind of discuss some of the historical aspects of the city. I know Inyo was speaking about it earlier, but you can see there is a building under construction. What building is that? It's just behind this sandstone-colored one.
That is the Woolworth building. At the time of, it was under construction construction started in 1910, and there's photographs showing around 1912, 1930, where the spire is still not yet finished. So to kind of give that little historical in bit there, we modeled it with scaffolding as it would have been at the time where Titanic would have arrived.
Exactly, and you can see there's a lot of other really cool looking buildings. Some of them do survive today, and some sadly don't. Yeah, as you can see, it looks fantastic, but if we turn around, you can see Pier 58, 59, and 60, the White Star Line Pier, and yeah, you can just see the tops of Titanic's funnels there. But yeah, that has been the Roblox Titanic Save the Ship update, and it's been quite fun to play around with. But if you guys enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like and a comment, and I'll see you next time, guys. Goodbye.